Welcome to the Strong Parents Podcast with Kim
and Riki, supporting children by inspiring parents.
Welcome back to episode 3 of the Strong Parents Podcast with Kim and Riki.
Yes.
We can't wait to get into this session, which is a topic that we receive the most questions about from parents, the most phone calls about. One of those things that I'm sure everyone is aware is becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger issue within society today. So it's something we want to conquer in our early episodes, and that is anxiety.
Ooh, yes, it's getting a lot more prevalent, especially in our young people, which is actually worrying and sad. And I think a lot of parents are really, really struggling with how to actually deal with anxiety when your child has anxiety or is scared about doing something. And I think one of the biggest things to note when we're talking to parents when they're coming to us with their child is experiencing some form of anxiety, generally speaking, social anxiety. So it's going into new situations where they've got to meet new people and make conversations, and it's just something that they have got this absolute fear of.
And sometimes, Riki, it's important to note that it may not necessarily be new experiences. Sometimes it's things they've been doing previously with no worries at all that suddenly they're not able to do anymore as well. So, and that's quite often the big red flags for parents is they've been doing this for years. Why suddenly now she's doesn't want to get up on stage, or now she doesn't want to do this, or now he's really worried about this every day. And so it's not always something new. It's actually also sometimes something they've been doing for a while, and
it
is
just
now
starts
an issue.
Becoming an issue for them. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we think is the most helpful for people to understand or to know about anxiety is it's a basic fear response. So when your child or when an adult, when anybody's experiencing anxiety, you start having a fear response. Your body is actually having a physiological response to fear. So all those things like your heart rate going up, or it might be, everybody experiences it differently, but sweating and fast heart rate and feeling dizzy spells, nausea, all of those things. And so when we actually whittle it down and take it down to the base level, it's a fear response or a stress response. It's fear. So when you're looking particularly at kids and the children that we see, they're feeling scared. They're starting to feel unsafe or scared with regards to a certain situation. And when we look at it as fear, sometimes it can be a little bit easier to navigate around when you're looking at helping them actually deal in the moment with helping them with breathing or calming themselves down. Or when you're looking at a big picture, you can start to unpick where it may have started and the reasons behind why they're suddenly starting to feel scared, whether it's something new or something that they've been experiencing and going to for a long time, that suddenly they're starting to feel scared. And
an important thing to note too is sometimes it's just an overwhelming feeling as well. So it's fear based on having too many options or having too many experiences or too much exposure to things. So it's an overwhelming feeling that there's just too much out there, and that creates a sense of fear or a sense of uncertainty within the child as well.
I love the word that you're using there as well, the overwhelming and uncertainty, because a lot of the time I think when you say unsafe, it makes people kind of go, oh my God, why is my child feeling unsafe? But actually it's more, like you said, Kim, the uncertainty. So it's having a lot of options, and almost as we were talking about in our last episode, actually, we were talking about that in today's society, we've very much got a focus on asking our children what they think and giving them the onus and the self-empowerment to start developing their own ideas around things. At the same time, starting from a very young age, they're still finding their feet in this world. And a lot of the time, parents don't realise, but actually their child would really, maybe don't even realise it, but want direction.
Want some guide. Exactly.
They want you to go, just tell me what to do, without consciously thinking it. Very often that feeling of like, what do you want to do? It's like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a point of where we give our children, we start too early in expecting too much from them, expecting them to have decisions ready to go, or know what they want, or we give them too many options to choose from. And as we said before, that's what creates that overwhelming feeling of, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to choose, and it's tough because we're encouraging parents to as you said, like validate their children and hear their children and empower their children and help them to make their own decisions and stand on their own 2 feet. But at the same time, we need to understand the developmental stage our children are at and the knowledge and experience they have, and whether they're at a stage where they're ready to be able to make that many decisions, and whether putting them in those situations actually creates anxiety and stress and worry for them as opposed to creating empowerment and confidence and self-belief.
Yes, and I think the process that parents go through is, I want to empower my child, and I want them to have all of the positive, I guess, feelings and cognitions that come from being able to make your own decisions. So I don't want to tell them no. I want to be able them to be able to make their own decisions. But in no and in here's what you're doing, there are a set of invisible boundaries around a child, and suddenly it's also safe. They know what they can do, what they can't do, and if you step outside of this invisible boundary, you're going to get in trouble, or you're not going to get dessert, or whatever it might be. And actually, it's about getting a balance between yes and no, because we're not sitting here saying, well, just say no to your children all the time and repress their emotions. Absolutely not. But in no and in here's what I think as your parent, and here's what I think is going to be really healthy for you and really good for you to do, is a semblance of, okay, so I've got in the back of my head, I've got this idea of what I know mum or dad or whoever it is thinks is the right thing to do. I know that if I really want to have a conversation with them, I can probably make my own decision, but I've got that is a base level that I know is good for me or bad for me or whatever it might be. So it's about really getting a right balance between yes and no, and no is a good word to use. And I think a lot of parents actually, it's a scary thing to say no, because in our previous episode you can come up against reactions to no. Kids don't like no, but they do like no. Yes. It's very confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things we wanted to suggest is that when children do start to develop social anxiety, especially in those early stages, they do want to withdraw from things. They do want to stop doing things. And it's so important for us to make sure that we keep them active within in things. And I think this is one of the little things that makes such a big difference in the long-term outcome. And we say this because we've seen this time and time again. When things are little, it's very easy for a parent to go, oh, okay, well, we just won't go today, or we'll skip that one today. And these behaviors start to develop where the child starts to realize that, oh, if I say this, then I don't have to do this, and I'm not really feeling like this, and so I know if I say this, mum will or mum or dad will let me get away with this, and it very quickly can become a pattern of behaviour that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's quite difficult for parents to change or reverse that once that pattern has started. And so one of the things that we highly recommend is when children are starting to get the early stages of social anxiety, as we said, they can quite often start wanting to withdraw from things, and because it's out of their comfort zone, they're already feeling quite stressed, quite worried, quite overwhelmed with things, and so naturally they don't want to do so much. They're wanting to close in a little bit. They're wanting to simplify things, and so so parents will pull them back from those things. But those things are actually what you need to keep your child quite often doing, because that's helping to boost their confidence, it's helping to keep them social, it's helping to keep them connected with other people, and that's so important. It's one of the big side effects of anxiety is with that withdrawal and disconnection, and so it's important for us to make sure that we're keeping our children connected, because this is what can result in our previous episode, where you get to that point where you suddenly, within 3 months or 6 months, you now have a screaming, hysterical child who's absolutely refusing to go anywhere, absolutely refusing to do anything, because they've already started to disconnect so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in that space, it's about when you feel the little tweaks, like identify when you feel the little tweaks of parent or friend, which we talked about last time too. It's like, okay, so my child's wanting to withdraw from this, and like as you were saying, Kim, you might not always realize it. It might just be, oh, they don't feel like it this week, oh, they don't feel like it next week, and then it's a month later, and it's a term later, and suddenly we're withdrawing from lots of things. So it's taking it back to those root. Hopefully this conversation is helping parents to maybe identify, helping to identify that route, that's when it starts, and to go, okay, once when you're feeling unwell is different to every single week now. We're not going to something, or we're not doing something that you used to do, and let's identify why. So what's happened for you? Because if it's not real, because it's always real for their child, but if it's something that's actually happened where perhaps a teacher's changed or whatever it might be, or someone's being mean to you in this space, that's different. We can affect change there. We can do something about that. But if everything else has stayed the same and you're just starting to feel like you don't want to go for no reason, that's when it could start being worrying, and I actually need to take that step here to go, okay, friend hat is off, we need to keep going to this, or we need to keep doing this, because we need to help you get through what's starting in you, that little fear that's starting you, that's going to grow if I let it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to clarify that, we're saying that children can feel anxious because they're overwhelmed and there's so much happening, and then we're saying, well, keep them doing things.
That's
And
true, yeah.
however, what we mean by this is it keep them involved with things that keeps them connected with people. Look at the other things that may be helping them to feel overwhelmed and reduce those things. So things like internet, use of gaming, TV, movies, all these things where they're getting excessive information in quite an isolating, I guess, environment. It's them and the TV, it's them and the screen, it's them and, their phone, whatever it might be. There's not that physical connection with other people. So they're receiving a lot of information that's having an effect on their, the way they see the world, the information that's coming into them. However, it's actually pulling them away from that face-to-face contact. So keep them involved in things where they're having that contact.
Yes.
Reduce the amount of exposure they're having to other things where there's an overload of information and not necessarily that space to digest it and connect with people.
Absolutely, and I love that you're saying that there, Kim, because that brings up for me something that I think can be really important to be aware of is that sense of downtime for our young people who have got so much going on, with so many exams now and so many things that they are going through, and they've got bombarding them all the time. So that differentiating between downtime as screen time and downtime as actual downtime. So where you're doing things like, for example, having a bath, reading a book, doing something that's a lot less stimulating on the brain. So a lot of the time, and we do it as adults, we're like, I'm having a night off by sitting with the TV on and my phone on and my laptop on. I'm not doing work, but you're still getting a lot of stimulus in from all of these different things. So your brain actually hasn't had a chance to switch off.
Yes.
So exactly what you were saying, Kim, it's not about banning the internet. The internet's great in moderation, but it's also actually switching your brain off. So actually enabling you to come out of getting your brain firing and actually doing things that are more centering you and your body. So for example, going for a walk and doing those kind of more simple switching off activities, especially for children. And
if you see your child starting to go through this, or you are going through this with your child, this is a perfect time for you to start creating some healthy habits within your home, within your family. So once again, we put the onus on the child, we put the focus on the child. Let's take the focus off the child and put it back to the family as a whole, including the parents, and go, right, okay, this is what my child's feeling. There's something that we need to do within this household to create more peace, to create more security, create more comfort, so that my child can feel ease, and that will only have a healthy and positive effect on you as well. So as adults, we may be able to handle a lot more pressure, a lot more information, a lot more overload than children can. So if we're already starting to see it in our children, it's pretty a good time, I guess, to start looking at the habits within the household and how we can start to take care of everyone a little bit more when it comes to being overwhelmed and overloaded with information.
Absolutely. And this episode as a whole as well has focused on more of a preventative approach. So it's looking at the initial signs and noticing things as they're starting to happen. And I think it's also really important to cover, when things have already happened and perhaps your child is experiencing, diagnosed anxiety, and it's a real issue for them to be able to get out and stay in, as we were suggesting, in those activities that keep them connected. So our next episode is actually going to focus a lot more on the, I guess, suggestions or advice or things that you can do to actually navigate your way through anxiety and stress when it's already there and it's already present in your lives. So we hope that you've this more preventative episode has resonated with you guys, and looking ahead to episode 4 next week, when we're going to be looking at how to actually
the next level,
actually how to deal with anxiety and stress, and how to navigate your way through that as a family.
And as always, if you've got any comments, any tips, any questions, please let us know. Comment, email us, direct message us. We want to hear from you. We're here for you. So we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.